Okay, so we'll get started today. If anybody's having any difficulty hearing me, just please let me know, and we'll make sure to address the audio. But if not, then we're ready to go today on today's session. Today we will be covering the Sonar Enterprise add-on solution. It is an add-on product to the existing Sonar employee monitoring solution. And we'll be going over exactly what features are included in this product, how to assign it, and the ins and outs of how the product works. So on my screen, and hopefully everybody can see my screen as well, I'm currently logged into a test account where I'll be able to go over the Sonar Enterprise solution. So the existing Sonar product covers the recording and blocking features seen over on the left-hand side of my screen. These features should look very familiar to an existing customer, except for the file tracking section up at the top of the screen. So this is a good place to start. File tracking is a core component of the Sonar Enterprise solution. We have three different types of file tracking, as you can see in the subcategories here, for Dropbox download and USB file tracking, along with the general file tracking, which is on the top level selection here. So if I take a look at this section, we'll see file tracking events that have been recorded by the software. So if I change the group by selection here to action type, I'll kind of spend some time here to go over the different action types, what they are, exactly how they occur, and how the software records them. So you can see that there's 4 different action types related to file tracking features. So we have an action type when a file is deleted from a computer, when a file is modified, when a file is renamed, or a file is saved or created. So the vast majority of cases on a computer with a file, one of these 4 action events are occurring. Basically, if somebody deletes a file, whether it goes to the recycle bin or they do a control delete and just delete it off the computer by bypassing the recycle bin, this will trigger one of these deleted events. If a file is modified, so basically if somebody opens an existing document file, modifies that file by changing some text in the document and then saving that document, what will happen is this will trigger a file modification event. And if a file gets renamed, in this case, if I want to take a look at just the file renamed events, you'll be able to see on the screen here that we maintain the original file name and the new file name. So if this file, for example, had been changed from new Microsoft Excel worksheet to Excel page, we capture both the original and the new file name. For saved events, this will be when a file is created on the workstation or when a file is being saved. It will trigger an event of that file being created. Now, in all of these file event types, you'll notice that we capture the information basically on the date timestamp when the file event occurred, the computer that was being used at the time, of course, the action event type that we just went over, and the file name. Once we select the file, and in the lower pane view here down below, we see that we may actually maintain the entire folder path structure of where that file is located on the machine. Now the overall general file tracking is a little bit different than these other 3 subcategories of file tracking, and I'll get into that a little bit further detail a little bit later. But if we move on to the Dropbox file tracking, this is a specific file tracking for files that are either being created, deleted, modified, or renamed within a Dropbox directory. So if somebody has Dropbox installed on their computer, they have the Dropbox client running, and therefore they have a Dropbox folder that's basically being synced through that Dropbox client. So whenever an event occurs on any of those files, we'll actually trigger an event here. Now, because those Dropbox files themselves are actually located not on the computer, but on a Dropbox server, this will actually trigger events if somebody is, say, deleting a file from their Dropbox on a completely different computer, but they happen to be logged into their same account with the Dropbox client running on a monitored computer. So for example here, this file has been saved to the Dropbox directory. We can take a look under the file name that there's a Dropbox directory here where the actual file is located. And this file has been deleted from that directory. Now, whether or not this file was deleted while we were on this computer or we were on a different computer, that we're unaware of, but we are able to actually capture the event of it being deleted. The same goes to if a file is renamed within the Dropbox directory. It will capture the original and the new file name associated with that file. Now, if anybody's familiar with Dropbox, they're also aware that Dropbox, you can actually change the local folder that the Dropbox client is using on a computer. So for instance, if this user was actually changing their Dropbox folder location on the local machine, the software would automatically update and begin capturing Dropbox events from that new folder location automatically. Okay, so if we move on to the next section, we take a look at there's a download file monitoring event. So download file monitoring, how this is different than the general file tracking is we are actually monitoring the downloading of files through a web browser. So if a user is, say for instance, running Google Chrome and they are downloading files through their browser, we would be able to capture those events through the general file tracking, but we've specifically created this file download monitoring to capture those events specifically as download events. So for here, all the files that will appear in this section will be saved because they are files that are just being downloaded. They're not files that are being deleted or modified or renamed. And we keep track of the actual file name themselves that are being downloaded through the browser. So in this case, the user was downloading a Excel worksheet through their browser, and then we were actually able to capture that event, save it under the download monitoring as we see here. And this would work for any file that's being downloaded. If we're familiar with some browsers, they only allow you to save files through the browser themselves, typically to a downloads folder or to a documents folder. It doesn't matter where the user downloads that file. We're not looking at only, say, the downloads folder. If the default folder has been changed or if a user is saving it to a different location, we'd be able to actually capture that event as well. Okay, and then moving on to USB file monitoring. So USB file monitoring is the newest portion of this feature. We actually have not quite released this one yet, but this will be released in our next client release within the next few weeks. This type of file tracking will actually monitor all of the files that are being modified, created, deleted, or renamed on USB flash drives. But they're not limited to just flash drives, basically any drive that's connected to a computer through a USB. So how this works is basically we have a filter in place that it's only looking for drives that are connected to a computer through a USB drive. So if, say, somebody changes the drive letter or they insert a new device, this will update automatically and will continue to only look at USB drives, even if some manipulation is being done on the drive level itself. So again, it would be the same file action event type. So we'll be looking at rename, modified, saved, and deleted. And this would only be looking at those files that already either exist on the USB drive or in the case of saving them, files that are being then saved either from a local drive like the C drive to a USB drive or being saved directly from, say, a web browser directly to a USB drive. Now, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the general file tracking is a little bit different than these other features. And what I meant by that is that for Dropbox downloading USB monitoring, there's no additional configurations that need to be made. The software is automatically updating. It's automatically looking to see if the Dropbox folder has been changed. It's automatically looking to see if a new USB drive has been entered into the machine. And that all needs to, there's no level of work that needs to go in terms of updating or maintaining that. For the general file tracking, there's an additional setting. So if we go down into the settings section on the lower left-hand side and into the recording and blocking, we'll notice that under the recording and blocking settings that we have a new selection here, which is the record file tracking. Now, record file tracking, obviously, this needs to be turned on for any of those file action events to be captured. But for the general file tracking, we have an additional settings over here on the right-hand side that we need to then go into and take a look at. So if we take a look at that, we'll see that there's a new window here that gives us the ability to set a folder path that we wish to monitor for the general file tracking. So in this case, we have a demo folder path, which is the /Windows already in place. So there's no limitation as to whether or not we could add a root directory, as in the entire C drive or the entire D drive or F drive or whatever drive that you'd be most interested in looking at. However, it is recommended to not use a root directory just in case there's a very large number of file action event types. In some cases, there could be thousands of file action events just from computers modifying files without the user themselves modifying them. In that case, it can actually slow down the bandwidth because there could be large amounts of file action data that's being transmitted to the remote server. So we'd recommend, in all likelihood, to kind of set this up by looking for a specific user's user profile. So in most cases, you'd be looking at, say, /users, and then looking for a specific user. And then basically we're filtering just to that user and just looking at that user's action events. And then, of course, we can go in and we can add additional paths. We can go and we can delete ones that we've already added and modify them and make them more specific and so on and so forth. So there's no limitation here as to the need to use the C drive. If there's other drive letters, we could specify those. If there are, say, for instance, network shares that have drive letters on machines, again, we just need to specify the drive letter and add that to capture those file action events. Okay, so that covers the file tracking feature of this Sonar Enterprise solution. So the next feature, which is more of a expanded feature, has to do with the printed documents tracking. So if we go over to printed documents under recorded data. Now, printed documents is a feature that we've had in the Sonar software for a few years now. We've had the ability to basically capture when a user sends a document to the printer. We can capture that, the timestamps, the user, the computer they were on, in most cases the name of the printer, and the name of the document if it happens to be a saved document. This is a selection here of just a general print tracking event that we would have been able to capture. Now, with this new Sonar Enterprise solution, we have the ability to actually take a screenshot of what is on the screen at the time that the user sends it to the printer. So if we take a look, I now have a selection with a print screenshot where you can see that when this user was sending this document to the printer, not only are we capturing the same printing and document name events, but we were also taking a screenshot of what they were looking at, in which program they were in at the time that they sent it to the printer. So in this case, this user was in Notepad, and this was the actual screenshot of when they sent this document to the printer. So this would also work in a web browser. As we see here, this user was in Google Chrome at the time that they went to print the screen, and then we go ahead and get that result here. Here's another example. This is in a Microsoft Word WordPad document. Looks like the user went to send this text document to the printer, and we're able to see what they were seeing on their screen. Now, in cases where a document could be more than one page, as you can see, this document, there's a scroll bar here. This document is probably a few pages in length. We're only capturing what they're seeing on the screen at that moment. We're not able to capture any other additional content on what is being sent to the printer. But at least we are supplementing the print tracking with giving you the ability to basically see what they are sending to the printer themselves. Okay. So again, this is included as part of that Sonar Enterprise solution, as well as the file tracking events, as we mentioned earlier. Now we have a new feature that has actually been released to the general Sonar customers. That's not a requirement to purchase the add-on, which is the ability to track private messages within LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, as most people know, is a social networking website that allows professionals to communicate with each other. And there's also a private messaging, also known as an email function within LinkedIn, that allows users to kind of send messages to each other without posting them publicly. So we now are able to capture those messages. So we have an example here. It will show up under the email. So it's going to be, basically it's going to be determined as an email type. And we're going to be able to capture both the recipient, so who's sending that message, who's receiving that message, the subject of that email, along with the body of the email as well. It's going to be classified as a LinkedIn email under the email type. So if we change the group by here to the email type, we should be able to easily identify those messages by selecting just the LinkedIn messages. So this is currently in place right now. It's currently in our customer account. So if and there's no minimum version requirement. So it should be enabled as of right now. And if users are actively sending messages through LinkedIn, the software should be capturing this data and should be displaying it in the email section. Okay. All right. So the last feature currently right now for the new Sonar Enterprise solution is a brand new reporting capabilities that we have. So if we move over to the dashboard and then over into the reports section, there are actually a few different types of reports that are relatively new. So if we click on the Add Wizard here, we take a look at the custom reports. We'll see first and foremost, we have these investigative reports that we released just a couple of months ago. It probably makes sense to go through these reports real quickly just to make sure that everybody is on the same page as to whether or not these reports will be useful to you, as they are, as I mentioned, only a couple of months old. They may be something that you have not seen in the account before. So if we take a look at the investigative reports, again, this is under the custom report selection under the scheduled reports. You'll see that we have the different data types that we can actually do some custom investigative reporting on. So if we were interested in just running a report, say for instance that only on emails that only contain alert words. Before these new reports, we didn't have those capabilities, and now we do. So we can actually run reports down to the very, very, very specific feature sets that our customers have asked us for quite some time. Another example would be if somebody was only interested in running a report on emails that contain attachments. As you can see on my screen, we can actually run that report as well. So there's a lot of different variables here. We can go from the ins and outs of it. If you wanted to just see basically only emails that had been sent by users or emails that had only been received by users, you'll notice that all of these data types have very similar, very specific rules. So if you are interested in kind of generating reports that don't require a whole lot of combing through to find the specific data you're interested in, these reports may be very useful to you. So, again, on my screen right now, if we're only interested in looking at, say, instant messages from Skype, we could filter it out that way. And again, there's really no other way to do this, from outside the account in a report other than generating one of these reports. So it may be a little bit time consuming to just set it up correctly the first time around, but once you get it, we can set this up. Again, let's just select a group. We can set this up as a recurring report, so it doesn't need to be something that you need to do every time that you want to get that data. We could set it up daily or weekly. I think those are usually the most common selections, and it will then just generate that report automatically for you, whether it be every Monday, if it's a weekly, or every day. Okay. So the new reporting feature, as I alluded to, there's another additional reporting feature that is only available in the Sonar Enterprise, is actually the new daily user overview report. So the report is actually not available in this account that I'm looking at right now, but in this selection under the custom reports, we're going to see a fourth selection, which is going to be this daily user overview report. So the way that this report is going to work is it's going to basically send the report out every day with the selected user's activity. So if we get to, say for instance, if we just clicked one of these reports, so I could just show it to you, and we get down to the departments level, we'll see that we can select the individual user. So if we just wanted to select one user or two users and not an entire group of users, we can select just individual users. And by the way, the ability to select individual users on reporting was also something we released a few months ago, and that's available for all the notifications, reports, and exports. Just throwing that out there. So what will happen is, if I just wanted to select one of these users, um, we're going to get an Excel report that's going to show all of that user's data from basically 12:01 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. And it's going to be on a kind of a rolling daily basis. So I have an example of one of those reports available here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. So right here we see this is an example of one of these Excel reports. So we're going to take a look, and we only have this filtered for one user, and as we can see, it's only over the course of one day. So this is going to be, as the name implies, it's going to be a daily kind of report. So if we're say running that on a weekly basis, we'd be seeing one day 24-hour period, and the next day 24-hour period, etc. Now, if we had multiple users in that report, I want you to take a look at the lower portion of my screen here, and we can see that there's a tabbed interface here in Excel. Okay, I apologize. I think I've lost the audio there. So if anybody didn't hear the last couple of minutes of what I was going over, basically I'm just going to open up the floor to questioning. So if anybody has any questions on the reports or the new features, please feel free to enter those questions into your question box on your screen. And if there's anything that you didn't hear, please let me know and I will go over that again. So I'll just open the floor now to any questions, and we'll just take it from there and give it a couple of minutes. So, okay, I think we have a question here. So the question is, can the Sonar Enterprise solution be installed as a standalone product? That's a good question. It's actually a assignable only product. So if we take a look at the settings, downloads and licensing section. So if you're familiar with how our downloads and licensing section works, basically after a product gets installed and a computer gets installed, it shows up here under license management. So a computer would need to be installed first, and then under the actions column over on the right-hand side here, you'd have the ability to assign. And that's where you can assign this add-on product directly to those existing installs. So if, for instance, you did just purchase that product without first purchasing a Sonar license, you'd not be able to download it or install it. So it is something that needs to be assigned to an existing install. So it's a good point too, because not only after the purchase, um, the license does appear in your account, but you will need to assign it to the computers you want to activate these new features for. So it's something that can be done for just a select few computers. So if you have say a large number of computers and you only want to activate this for a couple of them, you could do that. There's no limit that requires you to purchase the same amount of licenses. Okay, I think that's it with the questions. So at this point, I think we're going to sign off for today. If anybody has any other questions specifically on pricing or any other questions for our sales team, please don't hesitate to let us know. And if there's any other questions regarding the product itself, you can send those over directly to our support team, or our sales team will be able to answer those questions for you. So with that said, I think we'll be signing off for today. And that'll be it. So have a good day and have a good weekend, everybody. And that's it.